have the view that God is best kept private. I was surprised to find a similar problem around here, to be honest. When I hear about God in a seminary context, I keep hearing about a God I don't recognize. An impersonal God. God who doesn't answer prayers. A God who doesn't care about me. I've heard this is an academic approach, an enlightened approach. It casts off the primitive notion that we can bribe God through sacrifices and flattery, and shuns the view of prayer as magical hocus pocus, changing the divine calculus in our favor. Put another way, learned colleagues and professors have told me that this is something our congregants believe in, and that we will have to deal with. I tried a few times years ago to share my views of God with others, and by and large I got the same response. The other person would shake his head and chuckle and say, I don't believe that God will strike me down for eating a cheeseburger. Well, I don't believe God will strike you down for eating a cheeseburger either. I just don't think God's going to be happy about it. Excuse me for sounding primitive, but if I believed in a God who didn't care whether or not I kept kosher, I wouldn't bother. I like crab too much. I think keeping kosher, because these are the rules and norms of the Jewish people, is both a premise of questionable validity and a deification of the Jewish people. Unfortunately, it seems like most people think that talking about God this much, and in such a personal way, might border on the un-Jewish, might seem more in its element under a tent with a gospel choir. Well, that's how people need to hear it, then here it is. I believe in a very personal God. I believe God cares about me, cares what I do and how I feel.
How I feel.
I love God deeply. B'chol levavi, u'b'chol nafshi, u'b'chol meodi. And I tell God so every day.
Every day.
I took my first steps toward keeping kosher in a vague attempt to do God's will. I still keep kosher because God wants me to keep kosher, not because the community wants me to. I went to Israel after college with no doubt in my mind that this was the path God had laid out for me. I came to rabbinical school because God wants me to be a rabbi. I am a Jew because I believe in God. I am an observant Jew because I believe it is what God wants of me in all its details and nuances. If I didn't believe that God wanted me to daven shacharit, I wouldn't get up in the morning. And indeed, there have been plenty of times when I haven't. And when I don't, I truly believe that God is disappointed in me. I am not perfect in my observance because God sees fit to let me make my own mistakes.
It's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. It's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer.
This past Shabbat, we heard that when a person brings ma'aser, he declares that he has followed all the laws of tithing and has done everything necessary to keep it clean, pure, and fit for offering. This declaration ends in verse 14 with the following words: Shamati b'kol Hashem Elokai, asiti k'chol asher tzivitani. I have listened to the voice of the Lord my God. I have done what you have commanded me. We don't get to say things like this anymore. The closest we get to come to declaring we have fulfilled God's will is asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu. We have just davened mincha. How would it have changed your experience if you had ended your Amidah by declaring, I have just done the will of the Lord my God? Would it make you nervous? Would it make you slow down? Would it make you feel judged? Would it help remind you that you were standing before the Holy One, blessed be He?
The Holy One, blessed be